Hello and welcome to episode 241 of the Thinking LSAT podcast in Los Angeles. I'm Nathan Fox. With me in Vienna, Virginia is Ben Olson. Ben, what's the latest?
Got a trampoline.
Oh my God. Okay, great. So you got 911 on speed dial and you're ready for any injuries yet? Minor injuries?
No, not yet.
Okay, good. Knock on wood.
Kids are injured at this moment in time, but not because of the trampoline.
What did they do?
I know. So the youngest was playing football and caught it not quite the right way and pushed his thumb back. But, he had his little sprain thing on for a day and then he took it off and I was like, whoa, buddy, where's that thing that's keeping you from using your thumb? He's like, oh, it's fine. Look, I can push it this far. Just yesterday I could only push it this far. So kids, they're good at this kind of stuff. They push the limits of their injuries, which I think leads to faster recovery.
Okay, great.
No, I'm serious. That's true, right? Us old people, we get injured and then you don't move your arm at all.
You just favor it forever, and then
and you're carrying it around off. Like a little baby, and they're like, okay, now you can't use your arm anymore. What do you want to do? So
today on the show we have a Pearls versus Turds about managing test day anxiety. We have a question about how to leverage a football career in a personal statement. We have a decision time. Someone's deciding between University of Michigan with no money or Wayne State with all the money.
Okay.
We have an email from everyone's favorite law school dean, David Fegman at UC Hastings.
Oh my gosh.
Begging for emergency relief for Hastings students who are already impacted by coronavirus, basically by the shutdown and nobody hiring anybody. So Fegman wrote an email to the entire Hastings community about emergency relief for Hastings students and a Hire Hastings campaign that he's proposing.
Okay, interesting.
In case you're wondering how Hastings grads are going to do in the upcoming disastrous recession. And then we're going to close with an interview from Doreen Benyamin. She has an Instagram handle at Before You Take the LSAT. She's a 3L at Columbia and has all kinds of interesting information for wannabe lawyers. This show will air on Monday, April 13th. The June LSAT registration deadline is coming up. That's April 24th. Of course, by the time this airs, there will have been new announcements from LSAC. As of today, what's today? The 7th?
Yeah.
The April 25th, Saturday, April 25th LSAT is still on, but they've been tweeting about it. I don't know if you've seen this, Ben, but they've been commenting that they will comment. I think they've moved it up to tomorrow, Wednesday, April 8th.
They're commenting that they're going to comment?
Yes, commenting that they're going to provide some guidance.
Just comment.
Yeah, just cancel the fucking thing. But,
yeah.
Who knows? Maybe they're going to shock the world and say, yeah, we're doing it online on April 25th.
Yeah.
That would be fantastic if they did. But I think it's far more likely that they're going to say April's canceled. Maybe they're going to announce a May test. Maybe they're going to move it online. But let's not speculate.
Oh, come on. This is what's going to happen. I'm telling you right now. I'm putting my money on it. They're going to cancel April, and they're going to go online in May or June because they need more time to figure out how to make that happen. If they do go online in April, I think it's going to be a disaster.
There you have it, folks. Prognosticator Ben Olson.
Yep. That's my prediction.
Betting on the LSAC to fuck up a tech rollout is you're not going to get any good odds on that, I would say. It's probably an even money or even better proposition. The June LSAT right now is still scheduled for the 8th. So, and as far as we know, the deadline for that coming up is April 24th. So that's what we got for now. But next episode, we'll obviously have new data, new information from LSAC. Please email the show anytime. You can call Ben out on his wrong predictions about the LSAC if he's wrong, or you can give him props if he's right. That's help@thinkinglsat.com.
That's also where you can send all hate mail or whatever. Yeah. Thanks.
Yep, all the hate mail, and it doesn't come to us. Don't worry, it gets filtered through our awesome staff. So it'd be
For
nice.
some reason, that just made me think of Trump. Like, he probably thinks like everybody loves him. He's like, oh wow, the world's so great. It's like, I don't understand why the media is so mad. All the feedback I get from my cronies is that everybody loves me. Oh, on Fox and Friends. Anyways, sorry,
I mean,
digression.
dude. Do you ever watch John Oliver? You probably don't even have HBO, huh?
You don't need HBO to watch John Oliver.
Oh, really? Is he free?
Yeah, I think so, on YouTube. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I see him every now and then. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I just watched the most recent one last night, and he was talking about this OAN, this news network that's like way, way, way right of Fox. And Trump now is like, he hates Fox because they're not right enough. And so he's got these crazy OAN reporters in the White House press room. And it's like, yeah, it's just like, no, he's just, oh, you guys aren't going to be nice to me? Okay, I'll invite the OAN reporter in. And every time she like asks him some fucking stupid softball question, you know, it's like she's just, all she is just like pumping him up, essentially. And he's like, oh, that's such a nice, what a nice question. And it just continually calls on them. And it's absolutely not journalism in the slightest. But
how will the American people applaud your efforts to beat the coronavirus when this is all over?
Right. Or like, what would you say to people, like bringing up questions that actually no one has ever even said before? Like, what would you say to people who point out that there are far more abortions in the United States than there are deaths from coronavirus?
It's like, whoa, no one's thought of that ever.
It's like, no, it's complete non sequitur. It has nothing to do with like taking care of business against the coronavirus. But let's just bring this up because it's, red meat for the super right wingers.
What would you say to people who are shocked about how well you're testing so many people in the United States, more than any other country ever?
Would you say you're the greatest president or the possibly tied for greatest president of all time?
With Abraham Lincoln. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh, it's sad. All right.
Anyway.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, don't send us hate mail. Send us nice things. Our staff is really nice. That's help@thinkinglsat.com. If you want to propose a pearls versus turd for the show, or if you want to ask us a question about literally anything at all, that's help@thinkinglsat.com. If you want to send us a selfie of you studying or just goofing off when you do that, you might find your face plastered on our social media. If you haven't done so already, maybe even if you have, leave us a review on iTunes. Hit the 5 stars and write a few words about what the show means to you. It really helps other people find us. We appreciate that a lot. Ready for this pearls versus turd?
Yeah.
Why don't you handle it?
Alrighty. Current scoreboard, by the way, is 7 pearls, 30 turds, and 15 ties. Frank writes, this may not be relevant, but I thought I'd offer a suggestion for anyone that is struggling with getting test ready in a silent / quiet home environment, since we aren't able to be in a social setting right now. Or social settings right now, I've found a few ways to add in testing distractions. I know the guys have mentioned preparing as close to test day as possible. I've been testing at my kitchen table with YouTube videos pulled up on the living room TV. I normally use different videos of social settings like coffee shops. When I first started using it, the volume was really low, but I've been working up to louder volumes to help deal with any future exam distractions. Test center noise has been consistently mentioned to cause anxiety in LSAT prep groups. Thanks, Frank. For some reason, this reminded me of like using my TV as a fireplace on one occasion.
Yeah.
Anyways, maybe we're getting more of that these days as people are forced to stay at home, but it's still just a TV. I fear, Frank, that you have a good goal to try to recreate the testing environment, but you've substituted one inconsistency with another, in my mind. Silence, may not be a reasonable expectation for your test day experience if we ever go back to taking tests in person, but YouTube videos of people in coffee shops is also not a realistic expectation of what you're going to experience on test day. So I would favor the one that's closer, and silence seems closer to that than coffee shops. So I'm not going to vote for this one. What are your thoughts?
I think your test day, nobody talks about it when their test day is quiet. People only talk about it when their test day is loud.
Yeah.
But the distractions are not going to be the hustle and bustle of a coffee shop. It's going to be construction outside, or a marching band outside, or it's going to be a super annoying proctor with really loud shoes who keeps walking up and down the aisle and like standing too close behind you, looking over your shoulder and stuff. It's not going to be any of these kinds of white noise coffee shop videos that you're playing anyway. Yeah. I almost worry as well that like Frank is practicing being distracted, which, like, the truth for everybody is you guys aren't good enough at the content of the test. Let's be honest. All of your struggles with the LSAT are because you're not good enough at answering the questions. That's real talk. So I don't care what you do, as long as you just get better at the content of the test. Just get better at reading the questions, understanding them, and answering them correctly. Your problem is not you have a hard time dealing with distractions. Your problem is you're not good enough at reading the questions, understanding what it's asking, and picking the right answer. So, it's almost like it makes... I think Frank's like heart's in the right place here, but I don't know. I feel like he's focusing on the wrong things.
Yeah.
Everybody's looking for like a gimmicky solution, like a trick.
Yeah.
But it's not really a trick. It's just understand what you're doing on the questions.
I would say you want to recreate the test environment, take a proctor test with the demon with one of our live proctors. They're going to tell you when to start your section. Your section's going to end just like it would on the actual test day. And then you got to wait for everybody. Yeah. And the proctor is going to start you when you are ready to start. That's recreating a lot of the things that are going to happen exactly as they're going to happen.
Yep. And you have the nerves of, you log on to the Zoom before the test starts and you see a proctor who's, a stranger. At least the first time you meet them, they are. And you've got a room full of other people taking the test, a bunch of strangers. Mm-hmm. And then that's when like the anxiety starts to, kick in of like, oh shit, this is a big deal. I need to do my best here. This is my legal career on the line, all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that would be a much better, I agree with you, proctored tests in the demon.
Cool. Thanks, Frank.
Well, we got to decide. I don't think either of us are giving this a pearl.
I would not suggest it in class, so it's a turd.
Yeah, sorry, Frank.
Well-intended, as a lot of these things are.
I think they're all well-intended. I don't think anybody's trolling us. It's just that...
I'm sure there's some that are not.
Ben, this is paranoid.
It's a new world we live in, Nathan. All right, the Chinese created that virus. That was a joke, by the way.
How... so that brings me back to the John Oliver from yesterday.
Yeah.
Remember when Trump was super racist and he kept referring to it as the Chinese virus? Like, for real? Like he meant it?
Yeah.
That is 1,000% racist to do that. And people were rightly calling him out on the fact that it is racist to call that the Chinese virus. And the OAN reporter goes...
Wait, hold up. I don't think that's racist. He's just saying that's where it originated from.
It's fucking racist, Ben.
Why is it racist?
Because
it's like saying like, I don't think it's racist. I disagree.
You can be wrong.
I'm not saying right. Trump is not racist. I think
I'm saying. Trump is fucking racist.
But I don't think that is necessarily a racist claim. It could just be like describing where it originated.
He did not. Oh my God, Ben. You have to think about the purpose. Why would Trump refer to that as the Chinese virus? Why would he do that?
I agree that is probably his motivation to cast blame. I'm just saying that, literally speaking, I wouldn't necessarily.
Let me rephrase. When
Okay.
Trump says it's the Chinese virus,
Sure. Okay. Fair enough.
then it
I'll
is
go with
racist that he's doing that because he's appealing to his racist supporters
Okay.
and
Okay.
trying to scare dumb Americans into thinking that this is an attack from a foreign country, and so we should rally behind our president who's defending us against the, quote, Chinese virus. He's shifting blame to somewhere else. He's not taking responsibility, and he's being fucking racist because he is a racist. Anyway, the OAN reporter goes, this was actually in the, I mean, unless John Oliver's lying to me, which I guess who knows these days, but the fucking OAN reporter goes, do you think it's racist when people refer to Chinese food?
That's funny.
Trying to help dig him out of his hole that he dug for himself unnecessarily by referring to the COVID as the Chinese virus. Oh my God. Anyway, you ready to shift gears into this next question?
Yeah, happy to.
Okay, this one's about leveraging your football career in your personal statement. It says, hello, Ben and Nathan. Thank you both for your podcast. It provides the perfect balance of LSAT wisdom and comedic relief. I am hoping to get some golden personal statement and or admission council advice from you guys. I received a full ride scholarship to play Division I college football at Western Illinois University, where I graduated from in December 2019. I was an English major and film minor and graduated as a marshal with a 3.81 GPA. Have you ever heard of a marshal?
Mm-mm.
Must be some academic accolade that they do at Western Illinois University. Never heard of that before. I also got the Departmental Scholar Award for Top English Student in my last semester and have made several great bonds with professors that I'm hoping will lead to solid letters of recommendation. I went through several big injuries during my time in college, including going permanently blind in my right eye as a sophomore and tearing my ACL a month before graduation. People shouldn't play football. You're not going to let your kids play football, are you, Ben? Or encourage them to play football?
No, I'm not excited about football at all.
Okay.
Plus,
Football-
it doesn't move, right? It's like you're constantly waiting for the next play. You're like, okay, let's do this. Anyway, sorry.
Football took a lot out of me, including his sight in his right eye.
Yeah.
But it also gave a lot to me, both financially and personally. By far the hardest part of being a college football player, however, is the crazy year-round time demands. I know for a fact the overall commitment is unparalleled across all collegiate sports. And I only mention this because I believe it's relevant to the weight it could carry within a personal statement / resume. I'll spare you all the details since I'm sure you get the point. All this is to say, I'm almost positive I want to incorporate my experience as a D1 football player in my personal statement. However, I'm wondering exactly how I should go about doing this. Should I talk about my direct experience in the football program or my experience with successfully working around my football demands? Do either of you have any insight as to the benefits of being a D1 athlete may have, especially football, with law school admission councils? Thank you both for your time considering this lengthy email ! All the best, Joe.
Oh, man.
I have thoughts. You want to start or you want me to start?
Well, my reaction to all these things are like, I need to see it in writing and see what you talk about and then decide. I feel like he says, should I talk about my direct experience or my experience with successfully working around my football demands? I mean, probably both. I would like to see the facts, though. I don't want you telling me why you think you were successful or whatnot. But I don't know. For a lot of these questions about should I write about this, my answer is usually write about it. Let me see if it is written well, because the topic is usually not the issue. It's what you say about the topic, I feel like. What facts you give me.
The second you give me I was a D1 college football player, you already said 90% of what you need to say. Like, I don't want Joe to heavy-handedly explain all this shit to me. Like, do you want Joe to say, I know for a fact the overall commitment is unparalleled across all collegiate sports?
Such confidence. No, of course not.
Yeah, that's exactly what you don't say.
Yeah.
I mean, I think people get it, and people aren't stupid. And so the second you say, maybe you mention the scholarship, I think, just get to help, make it clear that you were a hot shit football player. You're there on a scholarship playing D1 college football, and it does. I mean, we understand that has year-round time commitments. We know that. That's not, so I don't want you to lecture to the reader about that. So I don't know. It's kind of like, once you say that, I just don't, I don't want 2 pages of that.
Yeah, what is there to say?
Well, it's just so what about it? What does that have to do with, why, so who are you? Are you saying that I should admit everybody on the football team? Because they all did that too. So,
yeah.
I don't know. I would, what's that done for you? Or where are you going now? What are you doing now? He graduated in December of 2019. So that's still very recent. And then he probably can't have done a whole hell of a lot because of...
I mean, it is a big part of his life.
Yeah.
So maybe it is the most impressive thing that he can write about, but do you have a specific story? I guess this does feel like it's prone to just kind of glossing over the whole thing, my experience as a D1 football player. And so then you'll end up just saying a bunch of generalities. I worked hard. We had to do a lot of games. I got hurt. I just want to know about maybe 1 or 2 particular things that you had to take a leadership role on the football team, or challenges you faced.
Overcoming the blindness.
Yeah, geez.
I guess I'm curious about whether he was able to keep playing, or if that was the end of his, playing career.
Yeah, if you're blind in one eye, you lose 3-dimensional.
Yeah. It would be, it probably depends on what position he played too. There's some positions where you probably don't need that as much as others. But
yeah.
I wonder, it'd be interesting to hear, your take on what football gave you and what it took away. I could see that being a nice essay.
Yeah, or what is your opinion of football now?
Right.
Did you encourage someone else to play, given the potential costs? I mean, how did you go blind? I
don't want this essay to be pro football. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The fact that you made it through this ordeal, that's great, and you overcame a lot, that's great. But if it turns out to be this rhapsodizing about how great football was to you, especially in light of the blindness, I don't think that's going to really work theme-wise. I would say write it, yeah. I mean, this is, again, now Ben, you said it first. It just depends how you do it. So write it a bunch of different ways.
Cool.
See which one's working. Next one?
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, thanks, Joe.
I almost called him Joe Montana. Dear Ben and Nathan, my name is Mohammed, living in Michigan. Okay. Imagine 2 scenarios. One where you got accepted. This is interesting. Okay. One where you got accepted in ranked 9th University of Michigan with no to minimum grant. Okay. This is sentences leaving out words.
Yeah.
Yearly fees is around 60,000. Comment there would be helpful.
So it's total, that's tuition and everything. University of Michigan.
Yeah.
60 grand. Jesus fucking Christ. Okay.
Okay. Or a full scholarship in mid-tier university ranked 91st Wayne State University. Mohammed, you have a lot of typos and miscapitalization and missing words and stuff. Anyways, therefore, out of these 2 choices, which one would you go for? My wife works full-time in Michigan, therefore I don't want to move out from Michigan. probably I'll get LSAT of 170, and my GPA is not that high. That's why not expecting a scholarship from you. Whoa. So we don't even know if this is a real scenario.
This is pure stats debating.
My gosh.
This is pure speculation. Get the offers first, Mohammed, and then we'll talk to you. If your choice really is pay full price at Michigan or full ride at Wayne State, I would presume don't pay for law school. That's a huge fucking difference, though. Is there really no other law schools in between Michigan and Wayne State?
Yeah. That's what's kind of challenging about this email is it's not even like a real scenario, right? Like, are you going to end up with this situation, or are you going to end up with a much different situation, which is easier to kind of debate? No money at the University of Michigan and a full or partial scholarship to a school in the top 20. In that case, I'd say go to the top 20. And it depends again on how much they give you. I don't know. This is
even if these are the only two schools that you would possibly attend, I think you need to apply to 8 other schools as well in the surrounding area, and lots of schools in between 9th and 91st in the country, so you can get yourself some competing offers. I understand that your wife works full-time in Michigan and therefore you don't want to move out of Michigan, but do you really want to be a lawyer? If you really want to be a lawyer, I don't know that like just only considering 2 schools is really right. People make lots of sacrifices.
And you're closing opportunities before they even have a chance to.
Yeah, there's ways that you could commute. There's ways that you could go. These days probably schools are going to do more and more online instruction, part-time stuff that you could potentially do partially remotely. I can't imagine narrowing myself down to these 2 options.
Well, what if you got a full ride to like a top 20 school?
Yeah.
How much money are you going to save and then eventually earn? Because you got that full ride, maybe you can more than compensate for what your wife is earning right now. Maybe she can work. Is she working from home now with coronavirus? Can she move? A friend of ours just moved to across the country. They were working from home and they moved, and it's like nothing's different. So it doesn't matter where they are. Anyway, I would question your assumptions that you're limited to these 2 schools, that this is the outcomes you would get. Most probably I'll get a LSAT of 170. Gosh, we got to even start there. Like, let's get your LSAT scored.
let's see. A lot of people think that. I mean, let's see it.
Yeah.
And even if maybe it's a 175. Maybe Michigan ends up giving you a crazy scholarship. Why sell yourself short with a 170?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Most probably not. We don't know anything about you, Mohammed, but
I would bet a lot of money that you don't 3%. Get exactly a 170.
Yeah.
Right?
97% chance you won't.
No, exactly a 170. There's a 99% chance you won't.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Actually, it's higher than that because most people aren't going to reach that high.
Yeah.
So, it's... Anyhow.
Thanks for writing in. You say you love the podcast and great audio quality. Glad to hear that. Maybe this is great audio quality now. So.
We do try. That's mostly Adam, though, bailing us out by editing the show down to something that sounds decent.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Mohammed. Appreciate it. Oh,
sorry, I'm already looking ahead. This is Fegman. Fegmanism.
I will read this one since this is my guy. He would never remember me, but I did take a class from him at Hastings in 2009 or 10. The subject, emergency relief for students in need, hire Hastings campaign. Here's the email. Ready? Dear cherished alumni community, I write today in a way that I have been reluctant to do in the past.
That is not true.
Our students need your help. The challenges we face today call to mind my wife Lisa's dad, Jack Snyder. Jack was 17 when World War II came to our shores. He soon volunteered to serve and became a pilot of a B-24 Liberator bomber operating in the European theater. He didn't talk much about his time in the war, except for one detail. He would never tire of telling stories and sharing pictures of his 10 flight crew members. But that's not one detail.
No, it's not.
He didn't talk much about his time in the war, except he never stopped telling stories about his 10 flight crew members. Okay. They developed an inseparable bond that lasted more than 50 years. They got together every year until, one by one, because of sickness or death, they could no longer travel to their reunions. Ben? Where's he going with this?
I have no idea. He's really caught up with himself. In all these emails, there's a theme. He has a lot to say, and a lot of it comes back to him.
I think he's trying to pull off like because of the greatest generation, therefore donate to Hastings.
Yeah, that's where I think he's going too.
That's a wild leap.
Wow.
Okay, that was the first paragraph. I learned many lessons from Jack, including admiration for what a team can accomplish that no individual could achieve alone, respect for colleagues who excel at what they do and give everything they can to a shared goal, and not inconsequentially, how to mix a killer martini. Jack and his beloved wife of 55 years, Eleanor, died more than a decade ago. However, the lessons they bestowed and the memories we formed with them tend to get stronger, not weaker, with time. That's the second paragraph.
It's also just false. The lessons they bestowed and the memories we formed with them tend to get stronger, not weaker with time. I'm sorry, that's just...
just this bold fucking lie.
Yeah, memories fade with time and change.
Yeah. I am reminded of Jack Snyder for many reasons today. To be sure, the circumstances and immediate dangers that he and his colleagues faced bear little resemblance to the ones we now confront. But there are similarities too. Like the greatest generation that stood together in the 1940s, we are called upon to rise above our individual concerns and to act with society's larger interests in mind. You know what, Ben? If he goes from here to stay home, wash your hands, cancel everything for the greater good, I would be like, bravo. But he's not going to. He's going to say, like the greatest generation, we need to stand together and donate money to Hastings. Are you fucking kidding me? I know that everyone is confronting uncertainty, anxiety, and profound challenges. The health and financial impacts of COVID-19 present clear dangers for everyone. I, of course, understand that every person's capacity to help is different. I also realize that there are countless worthwhile causes in need of assistance at this time. That's 4 paragraphs in. For those of you in a position to help, I have 2 asks, both reflecting urgent student needs. First, we have established an emergency fund to help students as best we can to meet dire financial needs resulting from the pandemic, including resources for food, shelter, or relocation. I ask that you consider giving to the Student Emergency Fund or, alternatively, to the Dean's Discretionary Account.
Oh, that's not ominous.
Both are important. The former will be used to help students confronting the immediate financial consequences associated with COVID-19. The latter I will use at my discretion to both supplement the emergency fund as needed and to support longer-range relief efforts necessitated by the health and financial crises we are facing. These include bridge fellowships for students who have had offers withdrawn and summer grants for students who have had summer associate offers rescinded. So he's saying our students are struggling.
Yeah.
Donate money to us. But you're the fucking problem in the first place. My second ask is more general and perhaps more consequential. As the economy wobbles under extraordinary pressure, our students are losing employment opportunities. I beseech you and your firms or other employers to retain the UC Hastings students to whom you have already made offers, or look to hire UC Hastings students, even if only for short-term work. Every little bit helps. If you are able to create summer experiences for our students of any length, please notify our Career Development Office, and there's an email address, with a description of the work, materials needed for vetting candidates, and your hiring timeline. We'll post this information on Hastings Careers Online, where our students go to learn about employment opportunities. Our career development team is also available to help you think through different ways you might engage UC Hastings students in your work. We confront profoundly uncertain circumstances in the weeks and months ahead. Although we need to isolate ourselves physically, none of us is alone. Family, friends, and our respective communities are there. UC Hastings is there. We will emerge from this tunnel and will be stronger and prouder for the strength, fortitude, and charity that we brought to these times. Thank you for being part of the greater UC Hastings family, a community that makes me proud every day. I wish you and yours well. Please stay safe and healthy. Warm regards. David L. Fegman, Chancellor and Dean, UC Hastings Law. Any thoughts?
Yeah, for some reason I feel like he used to close with warm regards and it was capitalized. I know it's a very unimportant thing, but...
He did capitalize every word in his salutation.
Interesting.
He capitalized "Dear Cherished Alumni Community," but then he did not capitalize "Warm Regards."
Yeah, which I'm glad about. Sorry, I'm digressing to the obviously unimportant, but I mean, I give him credit for asking for help. That's his job, right? He's trying to help his students. I would be curious to see who responds and offers help, but any help that he gets from this email makes it worthwhile for his goals. But he sure is entertaining. I mean, gosh, he really likes to talk. I wish this were a lot shorter. I really wish actually it would just focus on this second request. If you have jobs, hire our people, we'll connect you. Here's how. But maybe to make this pitch, he's got to say all this stuff about the greatest generation. I don't know. Maybe these things work. I'm curious. I mean, he sends them out to thousands of people. He should do A/B testing, actually. He should do this long email, right? And then have us write one and then see what kind of response rate they get. Maybe this is the magic of Fegmanism.
I don't know. Maybe he should sell the 14-story building he just built and use that to support his struggling students and alumni.
That would require self-sacrifice.
Yeah, we know we're not doing that. I mean, the faculty and administration is still making hundreds of thousands of dollars every single year, and they're while begging for people to donate money for food and shelter for their students.
Wow. I mean, that's really? Wow. The dean's discretionary account too. I guess that's if you're really in the orbit of Dean Fegman's, magic. You're going to just be yeah, give it to that one. Let him decide.
He knows better. Yeah, I don't want to put it into the student emergency fund. No, I'll put it in the dean's discretionary account because then the dean, if he wants to, he can supplement it at his discretion to supplement the emergency fund.
So how much are you going to contribute?
Yeah. Oh, boy. Nope. My days of contributing to UC Hastings ended, about 6 years after I graduated, when I finally managed to get my loans repaid. Which I was one of the lucky ones. Most of the people that I went to law school with are still paying for those loans and will always be paying for those loans, frankly.
Yeah.
What do you think about the claim that Hastings is going to emerge from this tunnel stronger?
And prouder? Yeah, that's where I just feel like it's just like, it's kind of Trumpian in this sense. It's like, oh, this is going to be so great. Everything's perfect. Everything's wonderful. You know, we're doing such a great job. This is the best job that's ever been done by any country ever. You know, we're going to emerge from this tunnel and we'll be stronger and prouder for the strength, fortitude, and charity that we brought to these times. Like, you're just, I don't know. It's just people, I guess, they like how they feel when they hear these things, but they're not based in any evidence.
Hastings' ranking is going to continue to fall. That's my wild speculation. I mean, you're really going to convince people to come to downtown San Francisco, actually Tenderloin, San Francisco, one of the most population dense places it probably is the most dense population in the state of California. And it's got to be up there in the country, downtown San Francisco. And it's got a crazy homeless problem. And it's there's no way people are setting foot on that campus for the foreseeable future. And the ranking of the school was already falling. Now he's admitting in this email that the students and graduates are struggling.
Yeah.
That's going to happen way, way, way worse in the next months / years.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw what happened after the financial crisis in 2008. People who graduated a couple years later were just like, no chance. And this is going to be deeper and longer and worse. So I don't know. It strikes me as complete fiction.
Could be. I mean, I guess we'll all see. It is a learning opportunity. So maybe he should have rewritten this. We will emerge from this tunnel weaker.
Yeah, weaker.
Oh yeah, we will emerge from this tunnel. Maybe.
We have no idea what will be on the other side of it.
No. Yeah.
I think
Weaker,
prouder is a safe bet, though.
Well, he'll be prouder.
That's what I'm saying.
Every day he's getting prouder.
Yeah, just like his memories of Jack Snyder and his wife grow stronger, not weaker over time.
Yeah.
He definitely grows prouder over time. That's just one skill, is continually being prouder and prouder.
I want to know how he comes up with these emails. Is he like getting into bed? He's talking to his wife, and he's like, "Yeah, I got to get some more money."
He's got to be fishing for money from like Greatest Generation people, right? Like he's got 80-year-old alums on this list who own law firms, and that's who he's writing it for. Yeah. So he's going to kiss their ass with some, even though it doesn't add up at all, Greatest Generation nonsense. If you want to donate money right now to help, like with coronavirus, you don't give your money to a law school. Come on.
No, wait, hold on.
How fucking patronizing is that?
They have a program for food, shelter, or relocation.
Or the Dean's Discretionary Fund for long-term blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Dude, it's the Dean's Discretionary Account. He's got that capitalized.
Yeah, he's got a bunch of these accounts capitalized, and the Career Development Office is capitalized, but he doesn't have Greatest Generation capitalized, which I thought was interesting.
Oh, that's an insult. Oh, no.
Yeah, the group he's trying to reach out to, and that's normally capitalized.
Oof, boy. He's insulted the entire Greatest Generation. Wow. All right. Should we wrap it up there?
Yes.
Okay, well, let's go get our interviewee. This is Doreen Benyamin. She is the founder of Before You Take the LSAT. She's a 3L at Columbia. And she's got advice for people who are thinking about going to law school. Let's go get her.
So today on the show, we have Doreen Benyamin. You went to UCLA as an undergrad. You're now at Columbia Law, and you're going to graduate this May, presumably, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Probably won't have a ceremony, I'm guessing.
No, unfortunately. Virtual.
Okay. A virtual one. Oh, is that what they're talking about? That's interesting.
Yeah.
I saw something, I think, on your Instagram where you were on Forbes, or Forbes chose you as one of the 30 under 30. Is that right? Or is that like a spoof? Or?
So what happened was they had the 30 under 30 event in Boston, and I went as like a Forbes scholar. It was more for like education than anything. And so it was just like an opportunity to do a photo there. And it looks very real because it's from Forbes, but no, I haven't made onto the cover just yet.
Okay, good. Just curious. It looks cool. I saw a picture of you with Gary V. Is that right?
Yes.
Too?
Are you guys familiar with him? You guys also like him?
I don't know. I don't have an opinion of him. I am familiar with him. Okay, so you went to an event with him, I guess.
Yeah, he did one at Wine Library in New Jersey, which is his father's store.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And you play the piano, apparently, and you run before you take the LSAT, which is like a resource for people, right? It's on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. You have a podcast. I noticed that your Instagram subtitle is Pre-Law, Law School, Career Insights You Won't Find Anywhere Else.
Yes. I try to provide, basically, so the whole thing with before you take the LSAT is I think a lot of times people go into law school not knowing exactly what to expect. And I know you guys talk a lot about don't pay for law school and things like that. But most people do end up paying for law school, whether or not that's the right thing, like that's a different conversation. But a lot of people do end up paying for law school. But even if you don't, like you're investing 3 years, and I just feel like there's so much that people don't know before they start law school. And I'm basically creating what I wish existed, which is like a resource that has more insight into what law school looks like, what you can do after law school. There's just so much information that I feel like is not out there, or is not easily accessible, at least.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Now, before you take the LSAT, you've interviewed lawyers from Apple, Nike, Facebook, right?
Yes.
That's exciting and informative.
Yeah. It was the GCs of those companies, the ex-GC of Apple, and then Nike, Facebook, and hopefully doing one with the GC of MasterCard next week.
Okay. So just for those who are curious, GC is general counsel, right?
Yeah, the top lawyer.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, we told our listeners on, I think, Facebook, maybe Instagram, I'm not sure. Thank you, Annalisa. But she reached out to our listeners and said, hey, what questions do you have for Doreen? And here are some of the ones that we got. I think we've kind of touched on this first one a little bit. Why did you create before you take the LSAT? And yeah, do you want to add anything to that?
I mean, yeah, I think it was mainly what I had said. I think also another thing is like, after I graduated undergrad, like I wasn't sure what I wanted to do afterwards. And I think ever since then, I had wanted to create a resource that helps people have more insight into their career path. And so once I started law school, I focused it just on law. But it's always been something I've been interested in. I just think that there's not enough clarity on the day-to-day, as opposed to like most people know the salary or how long it takes to get there, like just the numbers, like the quantitative, but the qualitative of what qualities would make me good at this job, like those types of things I think are much more difficult to find. And I find that is, very important.
What would you have done differently, Doreen, if this resource had existed when you were deciding?
I think for example, one thing like I like to talk about is before you start law school, you should have a pretty clear idea of what you want to do exactly, because it's not, I might feel like 3 years is a long time, but in a lot of law schools, you kind of have to know after your first year. And even then, like your first year, you're just mostly studying. So it's not like you have so much opportunity to explore. I think what I would have done differently is done a lot more informational interviews before I started law school, so I could have more clarity on the different paths. I think that's one of the biggest things I would have done. And then, like, for example, as a second and third year, I realized how much affinity groups and becoming friends with second year students or third year students could be so helpful. And as a 1L, I've used this analogy, and I hope it doesn't offend anyone, but I'll relate it just to myself. I feel like being a 1L is like being a headless chicken. You're just kind of like walking around trying to figure out what to do. And it's crazy to me looking back, knowing that 2Ls and 3Ls have so much knowledge. They're literally in the same school as you, walking around in the halls. And I just didn't know how valuable. It's not that I didn't have 2L and 3L friends, but I just didn't realize, just spending more time with them, asking them questions. And I know that they would have been happy to help. I could have had a much better idea of what to expect if I had done that. Especially, I'm also first generation, so I think that just adds to it. But even if you're not, I know a lot of my classmates, like a lot of them didn't exactly know what to expect. And law school is just so different from undergrad that kind of tends to happen, I feel like.
Got it.
Wow, these questions are kind of leading into what you've already talked about. But the next one was, can you talk about your law school experience? What should fall 2020 1Ls expect, especially those who are first generation law students? Wow.
It's okay. I think there's more to say. So what I would say about my law school experience, I think the most valuable thing for me, and I think most people probably wouldn't agree with me, but this is just, I guess, my perspective, is a lot of times it's the people you meet and the opportunities you could take advantage of. For me, part of that has been the interviews that I've done. Like, I just think, it provided that platform to be able to do those types of interviews, but also in terms of like my classmates, the school does a really, really good job of admitting people from all types of backgrounds. So, we had someone who was like a monk. We've had people who've worked in law. It's such a wide range of experiences, and getting to know my classmates has been one of my favorite parts of law school, just because everyone's really motivated and driven. And I feel like there's a lot to learn from each other, which is kind of, I guess, the point partially of the Socratic method. But yeah, that's been one of my favorite parts of my law school experience. I think there's been more generally about my law school experience. I think it's a lot of figuring things out as you go, which can be difficult. And I think to that extent, like a lot of times it is helpful to join different groups and create like bonds there and learn. Like a lot of times student groups will have resources like outlines or mentorship events, things like that. In terms of what fall 2020 1Ls should expect, I think, I think there could be a lot said about that with what's going on with the coronavirus. There's a chance, who knows, but there's a chance classes will still be virtual at that point. And I'm doing virtual classes now. It's very different. And I'm happy to talk about it if you guys would like, but it's very different. But yeah, I mean, I think that's something that fall 2021 else would probably want to think about, is just what the differences might be as a 1L starting this year.
Yeah, I actually do want to hear a little bit about what Columbia Law School has done to go online and what that experience is like, because I wouldn't be surprised that some schools don't continue to do that. Especially since, just last night I was listening to Dr. Fauci, and, I don't know whether what he says is accurate, but someone asked, when will things get back to normal? And he said that he didn't expect anything to ever get back to normal or the way things were. Things are going to be different from now on, but they will get back to some degree of normality. But I can see a lot of things changing. Everybody now is like, wait a sec, I can do work from home. Like, maybe I should just continue to do that. And some people hate it probably, but some people thinking like, why live in this expensive town if I can go somewhere else and get the same kind of work done? So what are law schools learning from this? And then how many of them are saying, oh, we can save money if we do some of this online, some of this in person? I don't know. What are you doing right now? And how is it different?
Yeah, so basically it was kind of sudden. They decided the week before, not that that's when they decided. When we started doing online classes the week before spring break, they gave us I think a day or two off so that the professors could figure it out. And then we went totally virtual. And a lot of our professors tend to be a little bit older, and it might be more difficult to make that transition. But for the most part, I found that they were able to navigate it pretty well. It does feel like a difference, unfortunately, I guess, in quality. I was doing a clinic this semester. I am doing a clinic this semester, which is 7 units, which is a pretty significant portion of my overall units. And it's the mediation clinic, and we were going to courts and mediating. And so it's not that we're not mediating anymore at all, but it's a lot harder to come across like virtual mediations. So it's kind of unfortunate. I think that there are for example, with the mediation example, if the school had been more prepared, if the world or New York had been more prepared, maybe they could take advantage and have more opportunities just because the courts are prepared for it and they can, have a system to do more mediations. But it's just kind of tough because everything was kind of thrown on everybody all at once. And then the virtual classes, I think it might seem like really insignificant, but one portion that I do like is that you can see everybody's faces, and that's been kind of nice to like it feels more like we're interacting with each other in that sense, because sometimes the classrooms, you're kind of just facing the professor, and it's a little bit more difficult to have that kind of, I guess, community. But overall, it's I think most people are not necessarily happy, but like, what are you going to do? I think the schools didn't have any other choice. But I do see there is possibility for it to be a good thing. I think just right now it's a little difficult because everybody's learning.
Great. The next question says, given you've done an externship at MasterCard, wow, someone knows some details about you. Do you think law school is preparing you to practice? If not, why?
I think especially opportunities like externships and clinics tend to do a great job of preparing you to practice. The class is a little bit more difficult in terms of like it being able to prepare you. But one thing that I've really enjoyed at Columbia is just that we have a lot of seminar courses. And so, for example, we had lawyers from Palantir and Betterment, which are both New York based. They came in and taught a class on tech and VC law. And that was really cool because there are people who are practicing who like, they would actually bring us into their office, and like we did a negotiation at their actual office locations. So I find that stuff like the externship or experiences like the externship or clinic or some of the smaller seminar classes really do help prepare to practice. Maybe more experiences like the externship and clinic more than anything, but some of the other experiences with seminar courses kind of give you more insight into what it would look like to be a lawyer and what the expectations are and what the environment even could look like. And so I think all of those things are helpful, and it's learning from someone who's in it. So, and maybe like has a different perspective. A lot of them have done different experiences, so not just the current role that they have, and that's been helpful as well to learn about the different experiences that you can have, because I think a lot of times as law students we tend to focus on just immediately out of law school, but there's so much to think about as you go along.
How much did Columbia help you get that externship? How much did you have to do on your own to make that happen?
So that was actually a new program that they started the semester I did it, which was last semester. And basically it's an in-house counsel externship. And I think actually what had happened was, whatever, anyways, I don't want to get into the boring details, but basically they make the connections with the companies, and then you apply for the different companies and you get interviews, and then from there they can choose to take you or not. But it is like there is a significant portion of them helping in terms of like even having those options, because before it wasn't really an option to, extern in-house. At least I haven't heard about it. It's, usually something that you do more down the line. So they definitely set it up and do everything that they can to help you, and then you just interview and apply.
The next question on the list says you seem to be very involved at Columbia. How do you manage your time between student involvement and studying for classes?
I think it's really hard. I I do tend to like to be involved. I think that there's a lot to do at Columbia, but I guess I just think about that when I'm choosing my classes. And because a lot of the classes I take, I find to be really interesting, it makes it a little bit easier to be like engaged and split my time between the two because I want to be learning what I'm learning. But it's definitely not easy. It's very hard to balance the different things. But I guess some of it there is some overlap. Like some of the things we learn in the class are relevant to the types of events that I might have. So I even like am in touch with my professors sometimes about the things that I'm doing, and they've been interested in it as well. Some of the like interviews and stuff, especially. So I guess it helps that there's some overlap.
From the Facebook group, Dawn asks, how important are your grades during your first year for your chances in whatever path with law you choose? Clerkships, big law, small boutique, whatever. How important were those 1L grades for you?
I think they tend to be very important, especially if you want to do something like big law. I think it can range a little bit between law schools, but at least for Columbia, after your first year, most people are doing on-campus interviews in the summer, which actually, just to throw it out there, this year they changed that to January because of the whole coronavirus situation. So that should be interesting. But so usually after your 1L year, you do the on-campus interview and your grades matter. And for people who want to clerk, your 2L and 3L grades matter as well. But yeah, I think it is really important. People say that your 1L grades are the most important, and I think that that's true. It becomes less important as you go along, unless you want to do something like clerk after law school.
Did you do OCI?
I did, yeah.
How'd that go?
It's an interesting experience. They have us in hotel rooms in Midtown, and it's almost like 15, 20-minute interviews with up to 30, most people don't do 30, but up to 30 different firms. And I think most of the time, as long as you have like the baseline grades, they're just looking to make sure that you're someone that they're willing to work with and talk to. And it can be a very, I don't know how to describe it. It's a little bit nerve-wracking, but also just weird because you're in hotel rooms talking about yourself and your reasons why you want to go to law school and why you're interested in that specific firm. So, yeah.
What would you say were the most common questions, or maybe even some of the surprising questions you got?
The more common ones, it's actually interesting. I think people might expect some of it to be about law, but it's mostly not. It's mostly more personal questions. So they'll ask you, why law school? Why Columbia? Why do you want to work in this specific market? So like if you're at a New York school and you want to work in any other market, they'll typically ask you about geography questions of why you want to work in that other area. They'll ask why that law firm, why that practice area. Almost like every interview tends to ask these types of questions. The more rare things, actually, interestingly enough, are like, what was your favorite class? And I've heard a few people where they've been asked about like more legal related questions that were like specifics of like torts or something like that. And that's just very uncommon.
Well, it sounds to me like when you say personal, it sounds like they're specifically concerned about your personal career
Yes.
Aspirations, right? Because they want to make sure that they're hiring someone who's going to come to them and be worth the investment to come back. Whereas stuff about law, maybe they're not curious because they already saw your grades, and most law students don't understand the law anyway, right?
You're a 1L. You don't know shit. They can't ask you legal questions.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, maybe personal is not the right word, but what I meant is just that it's not about law.
Yeah.
Directly. Yep.
It sounds very employer focused. Are you going to stick with us? Are you likely to continue on with us if we like you?
Yeah. I think that is what they're doing. It's just like they expect that you'll bring a certain level of intelligence, and then beyond that, the questions really are, would I want to work with you? Like, what would it be like to be, working together? I think that's the main question usually that they're really trying to get at. And like you said, like, are you going to stay here? Because I guess that's another huge concern for big law firms is like, do you plan to be with us and stay with us and not just leave right away?
Yeah.
Don asked a follow-up about grades, just asking, if it's levels of importance for each path. He says, basically, if I fuck up and get bad to mediocre grades during my first year compared to the rest of the time, is there a chance to rebound during my second and third year?
I think it could be difficult because it depends what kind of job you want to do. But if you wanted to do big law, for example, they're mostly just looking at your 1L grades, and it's a little bit more difficult to get a big law job after 1L, after that summer after 1L. So it might be difficult, but it's possible. And then in terms of clerking and stuff, I don't know, honestly, actually. Like, I don't want to say that I know, but I imagine like they're looking more at grades, not just the 1L, so 1L grades. So I think maybe there's more of a chance, but I don't want to speak to it because I'm not entirely sure. But I think generally there's a reason why people emphasize the first year grades. It's because for most jobs, that is the most important.
On that note, what would you recommend people do before going to law school to not fuck up their first semester grades? Their first semester in particular, right? Because OCI is going to be looking at those, not your second semester.
OCI is usually late enough in the summer that they look at both.
Oh, okay. All right.
I think it's a really important question, and probably one most law students I've at least seen are advised like not to think about, and I think that that's weird. It was also the advice that I got. But I think there are a lot of great resources out there to learn a little bit more how law school works and how like law school exams work specifically. And a lot of people don't learn about that until a little bit later on. One thing I used and really appreciate, and I know a lot of my classmates appreciate, is a website called Quimbee. It's Quimbee, and they are incredible. They basically provide briefs, I guess, that tell you what, not just the holding, but what is the rule as it can apply to other situations. And usually for law school exams, that's what you need to know, is what is the rule that could apply to other situations. I mean, I can explain a little bit about what an exam looks like if that's helpful, or I can just...
No, go ahead. I'm sure a lot of our listeners have no idea. Go ahead.
Okay, cool. So basically a law school exam will be a set of facts, and your job is to look at that set of facts and think about the rules that apply to those set of facts. And then you kind of make an argument for why it might go one way or another. So one of the most famous books that people read before they start law school is Getting to Maybe. And I actually haven't read that book, but the idea is like, even on your law school exams, you're kind of, it's not 100% yes or 100% no. It's kind of like you're getting closer to one side or the other. And a lot of law school exams are created in a way where you're not going to hit all of the issues. They're called issue spotters, and you're not going to hit all of the issues that come up. There just isn't usually enough time, but your goal is to cover as many issues as you can, identify as many issues as you can. And there's just like different ways to approach it, but I think one of the biggest issues, and what I was kind of getting at when I was talking about the whole headless chicken thing, is there's such a huge difference between what's expected of you in your classroom versus what's expected like daily when you show up for class versus what's expected of you when you take your exam. So when you're in the class, like the professor will ask you the smallest of details. Like it might seem as insignificant as like, what was this person wearing? Whereas when you go into the exam, it's much broader than that. And you kind of just want to have a good understanding of the case more generally and how it might apply to what issues are presented to you. So I just, I think a lot of times people are so focused on doing well in class and not being embarrassed in front of their classmates and knowing every last detail of the case. And ultimately, that's not how that's not how you end up necessarily doing well on the exam. The more useful thing to do, in my opinion at least, is to take practice exams pretty early on. I think a lot of people don't do it at all, or if they do it, they might do like a week or two out. But just being more familiar with what a law school exam looks like, I think really, really helps, just because it's so different than what people are used to in undergrad.
None of your grade depends on your in-class performance, right? At Columbia?
What they'll say is that they can take it into consideration, but like, no, most of your grade is based on the one exam that you end up taking.
Even classes that give the grade boost, you can get that grade boost by just going to office hours or emailing the professor or whatever. I mean, it's an ass-kissing boost, which doesn't necessarily have to do with, your in-class performance.
No, I mean, I don't think they hold it against you. As long as they know that you've done the reading, I don't think they hold it against you. So yeah, I think, and it's not really a transparent process in terms of how it affects your grades. So it's kind of just, as far as I've seen at least. So it is mostly just about your grade. But that does change after 1L, but most of your grades matter in 1L. Like if you take seminars and stuff, then it's not just one exam. It could be a paper, it could be assignments throughout. So it can range.
Yeah, it's just interesting. You got to think about how you spend your time, right? You spend your time preparing for class versus spending your time taking practice tests, which, if you had to choose between the two, practice tests are what's going to affect your actual grade. I mean, even where the ass-kissing factor comes into play, which is really, does the teacher, have a generally positive impression of you based on hours and hours of class time, how much of that is going to affect your grade? It's not a huge portion.
It's not, no.
So yeah, good to know. That book I read, Getting to Maybe How to Excel on Law School Exams, when I was a 2L. And I remember thinking, kind of like what you're saying, like, oh, okay, that's what you're looking for. Glad to find out. I mean, it really felt to me like I was taking an exam and then getting, at the end of the semester, getting a grade and being told, okay, this is how you did, and thinking, okay, now I know what I did or didn't know, and the class is over. So move on to the next one.
There's also, just to throw it out there, but there's also IRAC, which is Issue, Rule, Application, and Conclusion, and that's usually how we're taught to like organize our exams. So that might be something also that I know law students tend to be, and people who want to go to law school tend to be type A. So like, if I had to give advice to myself, I'd probably say, get familiar with like Quimby, know what a law school exam, know what to expect in a law school exam, maybe be familiar with something like IRAC, which is literally just IRAC. Like those types of things I didn't know about, and I think it would have been helpful to know.
Yeah. The next question is from Jonathan. He says, I'd be curious to know what other law schools you considered and why you ultimately chose Columbia! ! Thanks, Jonathan. Columbia has a stereotype of being a big law factory. How true is this? So I thought this said, how is this true? How true is this? Okay. Yeah. Thoughts?
Yeah. So, I had an interesting, I mean, I don't know, but I thought that I was going to stay in LA. I'm from Los Angeles. So I thought I was going to stay in LA, and I actually just ended up applying to Columbia based on a comment someone had made to me about like, you have a shot there. And I was like, okay, whatever, I'll just put in an application. But then before I heard back from schools and after I had applied, I realized that I really wanted that opportunity to move and live somewhere else. And so once I heard back from schools, it was just like mainly LA and like very few other schools outside of LA, and Columbia and being in New York were both appealing to me, both because Columbia was high ranked, which I don't think necessarily is the best way to pick a school, but part of it was the rank, and the other part of it was living in a city like New York and knowing that that's there are a lot of opportunities in terms of law living in New York, which, that I didn't even realize the extent of that before I started law school. But once I was there, like externing at MasterCard, I was at the headquarters for MasterCard, and there's no way, I mean, it would have been really hard to do it if I wasn't in the city. And like a lot of the seminar courses that we took, I had a very heavy leaning towards like classes with GCs. I guess I just have an interest between the intersection of law and business. And so a lot of them worked out of New York. And so even more than I realized at the time, I think a lot of it was about New York being a legal center. So that was a huge reason why I chose it. Part of it was not wanting to be in LA and wanting to move, and part of it was ranking. And then in terms of Columbia having a stereotype of being a big law factory, I think that there is truth to the fact that a lot of Columbia students do go into big law. I think the percentage is like 80%, but there are also people who go into public interest, but I think it's less than the number of people who come in thinking that they're going to go into public interest. A lot of times they end up switching over to big law. But, it's a path. It's a great path. So I guess a lot of people are drawn to it.
I guess one last question I have relating to, you've touched on this a little bit, but if someone's trying to decide whether to go to law school, do you have any specific advice or question that you would tell them to think over as they're trying to make that decision?
Yeah, it's such an important question of like, how do you decide whether or not you want to go to law school? I think I would go back kind of to what I had said, but I think I would maybe even make it broader. Like, so if you're thinking about going to law school and you're not sure, I think I would start with talking to people who are in the field doing things that you think you'd want to do, to see if it's actually, like, when they describe their job, does it actually sound like something you'd want to do, and like you would be happy to be in that person's position when you talk to them? Like, are you like, wow, this would be so cool, I'd love to do this? It's a little bit harder in the legal profession, but if you're able to shadow or at least like be in their office setting to see what their office setting is like, obviously not right now during Corona, but but I think like the coronavirus actually to some extent has freed up people's schedules. So I think right now would be a great time to reach out to people to learn about their careers. People are usually willing to give back in that way. And beyond that, in terms of the law school aspect of like choosing the specific law school, I think I didn't realize how accessible law students can be. Like, I think it's easier to reach law students than what people might think. So reaching out to either affinity groups or just generally student groups and asking to be connected to someone, I think is a great way to learn more about the law school, especially during a time like this where you can't visit. But I would say both of those things. The second one more for choosing your law school, and the first one more just for realizing whether or not you want to go to law school.
Okay. And practically speaking, finding these people, especially the attorneys, for the first question, a lot of this is just going onto LinkedIn, right? And finding people maybe at a company that they could see themselves practicing at and saying, hey, I know you do X. I'd be interested to learn more.
I would try to find I would try to find some kind of connection. Like if you went to the same undergrad, maybe like if you're an undergrad or you already graduated, that may be one way, but
you need an in.
Or if you have like friends of friends, you can also start there. But I think at the end of the day, if you don't know somebody, cold emailing might be the way to go. And then you can also build relationships that way that might last beyond just the pre-law stage.
And try to get a good picture on your Instagram, on your LinkedIn profile, right? Because for better or worse, people are going to make a split-second decision whether to respond based on how put together you are in your LinkedIn photo, right? If it looks like it was cropped from a party, it's probably not going to help you. So, okay. Nathan, any other thoughts, questions?
No. Doreen, is there anything we forgot to ask you or anything you want to shout out?
No, I think it's really cool that you guys have a podcast though and like are constantly talking about this stuff, because that's also something that would have been great to have before I started law school. I hadn't heard about Thinking LSAT at the time. I know you guys have grown a lot since then, but there's just so much to learn, and I just wish that there were more resources. But I guess I would just say, if thinking about who's listening to this podcast, like I would just say I personally didn't appreciate the advice that I got before I started law school of like, don't worry, like you'll figure it out once you start law school. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think there is so much you can learn before you start law school. And,
who gave you that advice?
It might have actually been someone who was at Harvard at the time, and it's just so unfortunate that people I don't know why they give that advice. It's not that they're telling you not to learn anything about law school, but it's like, oh, don't worry about like the first year stuff, like you'll learn it when you're in class. But so much of it is like common amongst the different law schools that I don't know that I don't want people to like stress out over it too much in terms of the actual content, but you can get somewhat of an introduction before you start law school, and I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing.
What would you have done, Doreen, if you hadn't gone to law school? If lawyering is no longer on the table, what would you do?
In terms of grad school or like what would I do career wise?
It doesn't have to be grad school.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the things that I'm doing on the side right now have always been passions of mine. Like, I've always enjoyed like being able to help others in whatever capacity. So doing it in the sense of helping people figure out their career or trying to help them figure out their career to the best that I can, even just being like a facilitator of like bringing other people and sharing their insights, that I think that's probably what I would do. I guess, yeah, I just really, I feel like I feel like everybody has a strength and something unique about them that they can add to the world. And a lot of people are not necessarily using it or using it to the extent, to the fullest. And so, yeah, I think what I'm doing now in terms of like the before you take the LSAT stuff, that's something that maybe I would do even more, like to a larger extent if I wasn't in law school and if I wasn't pursuing law.
On that note, you've interviewed several general counsels from big companies that we all know. What interview would you recommend to people? Which one was the most interesting?
The one with the former general counsel of Apple was just like, not only was he super knowledgeable, but he knew who his audience was and he was catering to the audience. Like he knew that people were hungry for certain knowledge, like they're early on in their career and they have these questions like starting out, how do I think about this? Like what type of background should I be thinking about if I want to go into being a GC down the line? I just think that one is full of insights. Not that the other ones aren't, but I think that one especially is full of insights. The Nike one is maybe she didn't necessarily just gear it towards women, but I think as a woman, maybe some people would relate to certain things that she says even more, like in terms of like imposter syndrome and things like that. But I would overall say the Apple one for sure.
Okay, and people can find that by searching for what?
Before you take the LSAT on YouTube.
Okay, and they'll and maybe Apple throw in there to get that particular interview.
Yeah, I am also on. I mean, I think you already mentioned it, but I am also on like Instagram and podcasts and stuff like that. So I don't think that specific episode is actually not on podcast, but I think I'll probably actually post it soon because why not?
Yeah, great. Well, thanks so much for your time, and it's been good hearing about the law school experience, and I'm sure people can take a lot of these ideas to heart. Hopefully they'll get ready if they decide to go. Thanks again.
Thank you guys so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Thanks, Doreen.
Again, if you guys want to find Doreen, you just go to Before You Take the LSAT on all those different channels. Thanks again.
Okay, thank you guys.
Okay, anything else we need to talk about, Ben, before we wrap the show up?
That's it.
You can join the Thinking LSAT podcast group on Facebook. We are at Thinking LSAT on Instagram and Twitter. Go to strategyprep.com and foxlsat.com to learn about all of our individual services, although those are merging these days, aren't they, Ben, into LSAT Demon Live?
They are. Yeah, that's where we're going.
I'm having lots of fun teaching LSAT these days, and you can join those classes. We have live instruction 7 days a week at lsatdemon.com, not just with me, but with Ben and with all of our awesome TAs. So check it out. You can do a free trial at lsatdemon.com. You can listen to the show a million different ways: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Stitcher. Please subscribe and rate and review us. Those things really do matter. Thanks to Doreen Benyamin for coming on the show. That was episode 241 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. Thanks all y'all for listening. Nice knowing you. Don't pay for law school.